You're listening to the Options Insider Radio Network. For more quality options programs, visit www.theoptionsinsider.com or search for Options Insider Radio Network in your podcast provider of choice. Listeners can also access all of our programming through our mobile app, available in iTunes and on Google Play. Don't forget to follow along with your favorite programs and submit your own questions for the hosts at twitter.com/options, facebook.com/theoptionsinsider, or via questions at theoptionsinsider.com.
And now, it's time for the show that breaks down the options market, from unusual activity alerts to market analysis, strategy overviews, listener questions, and much more. If it involves puts and calls, then our all-star panel will break it down. It's time to hit the option block with your host, Mark Longo from the Options Insider Media Group, and co-hosts Uncle Mike Tussaw from RCM Asset Management, Andrew the Rock Lobster Joe Vanazzi from OptionPit.com, and Mark the Greasy Meatball Sebastian from OptionPit.com. And now, get ready to hit the option block.
All right, everybody. Welcome back to the option block. We are joining you live here one final time in 2017. Yes, it's our end of year wrap up, 2017 Palooza party. Call it what you will. We're going to break it all down for you, and we're looking forward to doing just that. My name is Mark Longo from, of course, the OptionsInsider.com, as well as from a little something we like to call the OptionsInsider.com. If you just listen to the radio shows, hey, we like you, we love you. But we do have a fun website over there, too. You may want to check out over there. We got a lot of great content going up every day. Breaking news from the options market, a lot of unusual activity, analysis, most actives, all that fun stuff. We got a lot of cool stuff. You never know what's going to hit the site there every day, so check it out. It's a fun place to spend some time. And, of course, however you join us on the site after the fact, via iTunes, via the mobile app, via Mixler, live every Monday and Thursday, 3 p.m. Central, 4 p.m. Eastern. However you listen, however you consume our content, make sure you do reach out, hit us up, questions, comments, insights, pearls of wisdom. We love it all. We do, yes, we do, like to hear from you guys. And joining me on the program, two other guys who like to hear from you on occasion. Starting off, let's go out to the peaceful, tranquil shores of St. Charles, where we are joined by Uncle Mike Tussaw from RCM Wealth Advisors. Uncle Mike, Xmas is in the rearview mirror, closing in on the new year. Final show of 2017. Heady stuff. Are you prepared, sir?
I'm always prepared. I'm excited. I'm sad to see the end of 2017 because it was such a great year, especially if you didn't want the VIX to go high, which we'll talk about today, I'm sure. But excited about the new year, with, all the great things that are happening.
I'm sure a lot of people are probably in the other camp saying they can't wait for this year to end. It was a bit of a weird one. We'll get to all that weirdness in a little bit. But first, let me welcome on the Rock Lobster himself, Mr. Andrew Giovinazzi. Mr. G, happy Christmas, as the Brits say to you, and as we're closing up 2017. Looking forward to a fun show. Are you ready for our 2017 year-end Palooza, sir?
I am ready as Maine ice is over as we speak. It is, somebody threw a blanket of negative temperatures on us.
Yeah, my little guy pointed out today that even the Chicago River here down near the studio is starting to freeze ice over a little bit. Hasn't happened in a while. Not completely, just a little bit. But still, we're getting a little taste of Maine here. You guys can keep it, though, as we keep on rolling right on into the trading block.
It's time to break down the latest topics, trades, and trends in the world of options. It's time for the trading block.
All right, everybody, before we get to the Palooza that was and indeed still is good old 2017, let's break down what's going on here for our final show day and the penultimate trading session of 2017, and a bit of a snoozer to wrap up the year here, or close to it. Most of the major indices closing up ever so slightly, up fractionally on the day, about 0.1% for both the S&P and the Qs, a comparatively bullish 0.2% for the Dow, and of course, all this slight amount of green on the screen means VIX cash, after just surging, exploding to the upside, getting into double digits. I know heresy craziness listeners that VIX could actually hit double digits, but it did it this week, and we're still in double digits, but we're flirting with single digits again, closing out the day right around 10:15 or so. Let's see how low we got into. No, we never broke the 10 handle intraday. Got as low as 10:07, got as high as 10:43. So had a little bit of vacillation there, but pretty much VIX a bit of a snoozer along with the rest of the market. Everyone's already heading out for greener pastures, or maybe in the case of the rock lobster, and even some of the Midwest here, freezing over ahead of the new year. So some interesting stuff. So let's start there, Mr. Rock Lobster. Before we get into looking back in the old rearview mirror, let's look into today's mirror one final time for the year. What caught your eye in today's activity, sir? And actually this week's, because we didn't have a show on Monday, so if anything earlier this week caught your eye as well, have at it, sir.
If anything, we had like a little surge in VIX cash into, because I think we were in the 9s last week and we're in the 10s this week, although it's having a hard time barely hanging on to the 10 handle. So from that point of view, the market is not looking really for anything. The future premium's a little low. It's very, let's just call it a big meh into the end of the year for basically historic closes in all the major indexes, or close to it. Vol is low, and as far as, I'm just looking at vol premium down the road. It's just, there's almost none in there. Looks relatively low. So I find that all, it's basically it seems like everybody's just taking their chips and they're going home and they're going to resume after the 1st. Because I don't know how many holiday cycles you sat through where, you're kind of looking at the paint dry between Christmas and New Year's. So today, no exception in the paint drying area.
Yeah, it was a little paint dry-y to create a new adjective here, but yeah, it is interesting. We've kind of lamented that all year, and spoiler alert for what we're going to talk about in a little bit. But that has kind of been a running theme. They're not putting any juice back into the futures or into the VIX, and probably not a rational thing to assume they're going to do it in the last couple of sessions of the year, and that's pretty much exactly what we saw today. They're not really pricing in much of anything. A lot of people already getting the heck out of Dodge for the beginning of the big holiday season. Of course, Monday, yet another holiday, so we won't be with you to kick off the new year. On Monday, we'll be back on Thursday, listeners, a week from now, as usual, to kick off 2018. Hard to even say that with 2018. It sounds so futuristic, and yet now it is upon us, which is crazy in and of itself. Uncle Mike, anything on your list? Anything catching your eye here in this penultimate trading session of 2017, sir?
Well, here's the way with which I overcome the paint drying effect. I paint things silver. Silver has been on a tear lately. Over the course, ever since it's got the tar kicked out of it in the earlier part of the month, a lot of it has come back. So just since I'm looking at the lows of silver came on, I believe it was the 12th. I'm looking at SLV. The low of silver was on the 12th and around 1475, I believe it was. And it's gained almost $1 over the course of the last couple of weeks since then. So we've had quite a run in silver recently. During that time, I was able to close out a covered call that we had open on it. And then if we run up a little bit more, we'd love to reopen another covered call in some way, shape, or form. But we're going to need to do a little bit more running before I can do such a thing with that. But I do promise to make sure that I update all of our listeners on any adjustments that I do make to my silver trades. So definitely have that going on. The other thing that we have going on in the marketplace over the last couple of weeks, it's that Fitbit thing, those coins that you get that are in bites. Bitcoin, oh yeah, that. Just in looking at that.
Fitcoin?
Something like that. I forget what you call it. It's one of those things that people are talking about. But since it opened up on the Cboe at 15,000 on the 11th, it's actually gotten as high as 20,500, as low as 11,300, and it looks like it's right now on the upper 13,000. 13,790 at this point in time. So with Bitcoin, if you want some type of excitement, something that moves roughly 10% during the day, that moves that much, that would qualify for me anyway in terms of excitement. If you go back to the 22nd, it looks like the range in Bitcoin from peak to trough, the high of 15,840, low of 11,300. If you're looking for something that moves, Bitcoin doesn't care if it's the holiday. It still does like to do some moving. So if you want to see some movement, look at Bitcoin.
You know, I was prepared to roundly mock you for the Fitcoin, but I think about it, it's not a bad idea. Maybe we could combine the crypto craze, Uncle Mike, with the need to get people up and moving around in this country. Somehow we value this Fitcoin, hashtag Fitcoin. I've already claimed that, so copyright pending, patent pending. But maybe we peg the value of this Fitcoin to the number of aggregate steps that are logged on Fitbit trackers every single day. What do you think? How's that?
Let's do it. Let's get some type of co-branding between the Cboe and Fitbit, and we'll take this thing to the stratosphere.
I like it. You know, it's got about as much inherent and intrinsic value as just about any other crypto I've seen. So, and at least it has a good intent behind to get the nation up and moving about. And I'm sure Fitbit wouldn't mind it either. A little bit of good branding. Look at Overstock.com. They're getting the hell out of the retail business and getting into purely crypto. So maybe this could be a pivot for Fitbit as well. I like it. Interesting stuff. I wasn't expecting to create another crypto, but apparently we just did on the show. So look forward to our ICO coming soon. Listeners, speaking of crypto, before we get into 2017 Palooza, we got to hit on the other big story that pretty much happened since we were off the air last. Of course, we teased you with the hint of ICE announcing their own Bitcoin ETF on the CME and Cboe futures. I'm sure they just love that. Now Cboe deciding to play their own version of the game as well. Then they said, you got one or maybe two. They announced we're gonna trump you. We got 6. So they announced 6 Bitcoin ETFs that they are currently filing with the SEC. They are the First Trust Bitcoin Strategy ETF, the First Trust Inverse Bitcoin Strategy ETF, the Rex Bitcoin Strategy ETF, the Rex shares guys out there who do the VolMax, VolMin products out there for the VIX. The Rex Short Bitcoin Strategy ETF, the Granite Shares Bitcoin ETF, and the Granite Shares Short Bitcoin ETF. So it sounds like we've got 3 different companies trying effectively 2 different flavors of it, the long and short Bitcoin product. I'm very curious how they're gonna do this this short Bitcoin product. They all say they're going to primarily list and invest in the Bitcoin futures. So if they're long or short it, they're going to use those contracts. Although they all do have a caveat in their prospectus to say they may use OTC Bitcoin derivatives, U.S. exchange-listed ETPs, and non-U.S. component stocks. So quite frankly, we don't know what the hell they're going to own. But I am curious. I don't know, Mr. Rock Lobster, would you want to be the portfolio manager on the short Bitcoin ETF right now?
It's going to be really interesting to see how that works. One thing about the futures, and this is, again, my opinion at the time doesn't mean anything, so hindsight looks genius, but I thought, once they list the futures, it should take a little heat out of the upside. And at least for now, it looks like it has. And I'm wondering what will happen once they ETFize the futures. I wonder if that brings a surge back because, the future thing is still a little bit funky from a lot of the average investor. But you go, ETF, I can take an ETF and I can check it in my IRA, which I don't recommend doing. More tradable. So that might start, almost like you got the VIX futures, then you have the VIX ETFs. The volume kind of begot volume and the liquidity showed up. And I have no idea where Bitcoin is going to go. But I have to say, I would think that was going to be just like a hair bullish because, the average person can buy the ETF. That will generate some buying interest in the futures, and it's not like they're, massively liquid. So that could get stuff moving. I don't think it'll make it less exciting, but no, I do not want to be the short Bitcoin strategy guy. Because you're scrambling. There's no way around that.
Uncle Mike, do you think any of these will make it into the strategic night? And also, by the way, your buddy Solomon there clearly listening to the show because he's responding. Uncle Mike is onto something here with his Fitcoin. He said this is the way Fitbit obviously can double in market cap like Long Island iced tea. I'm not sure what he's LTEA. I'm not sure which name he's referring to there. But there you go, Uncle Mike. Someone already have a buyer for your Fitcoin. And then B, what do you think of this exploding universe of Bitcoin ETFs?
Well, a couple things from the marketing standpoint. I figured, we always talk about Apple as the fruit company, so maybe Apple should partner up with some type of apple orchard too, as long as we're at it. But in terms of the Bitcoin ETF, holy cow, this thing. I'm willing to bet that our investor policy committee will not allow the short Bitcoin ETF into the strategic night. I can't promise you that, but I'm willing to bet it'll probably not make it in. But in terms of it being there, I'm kind of excited to see what it is. I'm excited to see how options might trade on it once the inevitable truth that options are going to come out on this at some point. And I'm curious to see if this is also, and I'm going to borrow one of your terms, if I may, Andrew, if this the short one becomes, as Andrew likes to put it, predictably crappy.
Ooh, there you go. Boring your terms all over the place. I'm looking here at this LTEA. This is formerly Long Island Iced Tea Corp. I thought I was joking. Now Long Blockchain Corp. So they're following the lead of Overstock and everybody else, just pretty much ditching their primary core business that's even built into their name and pivoting into crypto or blockchain or something related there. How could that go wrong? What could possibly go wrong with that? All right, with that, I think we're going to pivot ourselves right on into our 2017 year-end Palooza. So let's look back. Obviously, we touched on a little bit of some of the big market, moves and singular data points from last year. But this was an inexplicable year. No matter how you kind of look at it, no matter how you dice it, there were just outstanding things and crazy things and shocking things across the board. In fact, let's kick things off. We asked you guys our question of the week this week. It's kind of a last one of the year. We thought we'd make it a little more open-ended, a little straightforward for you guys, and pretty much say to you, hey, final question of the week this year, an easy one. Just tell us, what is your enduring market memory or event or trend or whatever it is from 2017 that really resonated with you? If you have your own suggestion, we give you some ideas. We encourage you, if you want, to choose other and send in your own thoughts, and we'll share some of the fun ones. We did give you some choices to help get the ball rolling. We gave you the death of volatility / VIX, the rise of Bitcoin, the unstoppable bull market, or other. And I'll just give you a few of the others we already have. We have our OptionsAlliance buddies cheating in about the surprise resurgence of options volume in 2017. That is an interesting one. In fact, that's one of the bullet points I have marked down to talk about. OliveWanaBroker, I'm not sure what that is, tweeting in saying that the oats bull market, very important, at least to him. So there you go, oats. Who knew? So a lot of stuff. Mr. Rock Lobster, how do you think our audience is voting here, sir?
I am going to say I think the audience is going to say the unstoppable bull as the story. Because I think that's most people can identify with the bull market, although I think a lot of people have sat out the bull market. So I'm going to go with that, even though Bitcoin's probably getting the headlines in the last month or so.
Uncle Mike, what do you think our audience is pulling for, sir?
Well, if it can't be the bull market and oats, then I think I'm going to go with the bull market. I'm going to agree with Andrew. And that's what I would go with as well.
Our audience, at least in the early voting here, about an hour or so in. We got all week to vote, listeners. Actually, not all week. We got less than that because we have the week is ending. But we did post it late in the week, so you got a little bit extra time here. So far in the early voting, they're evenly split. 38% saying rise of Bitcoin, 38% saying the unstoppable bull, the death of VIX. Not really, only 19%. And 5% coming in with other. We read you some of the ideas. I'll kick up a few more here as the show goes on. But let's get into some of the things that really resonated with us. I think we touched on it last week, but we can't really emphasize enough just what a surprise what this year turned out to be from a volatility perspective. No, I don't know anybody who's sane or rational that I give any real market credence to. Anyone who predicted this. This is less predictable than the crashes of the dot-com implosion. A lot of people predicted that. 2007 meltdown. A lot of people saw that coming in different ways. I don't know anybody who predicted that Trump would take office and volatility would die a slow, painful death throughout the course of the year. And yet, as the OptionsAlliance folks pointed out there, options volume, not bad. That's probably one of my other big takeaways from this year. I mean, going back, I mentioned that we have people on the show. We recorded a lot of content from the conference, going as recently as May, so almost halfway through the year at the big OIC conference. It was a very dire outlook for the year. No one seemed very hopeful. Everyone was concerned about where retail flow was going to come from. Everyone was very concerned at the time. We were just in the beginnings of this volatility trend. They were hoping it would reverse. They thought that was really going to be the death knell for the options industry. It always has been conventional wisdom that you need a nice amount of vol, not a ton. Volatility is kind of like something a little bit crazy, where if it gets too crazy, people take their ball and go home. It can be damaging. So it has to be exciting, but not too exciting. And we weren't even at that level. We were at no excitement whatsoever. So everyone thought that was going to be severely damaging for the business. And yet, so far, obviously, we don't have the final numbers for the year from OCC yet, but going through 11 months of the year, going through November, they were year to date. Their ADV at OCC was up 4%. This year. And we talked about in volatility views, multiple days of record volume in the VIX options and the VIX futures, even when VIX itself is at a level that really is borderline inconsequential, when realized volatility is sub 6 for months at a time. We have these periods where we still put up record numbers. It's been a bit of a head-scratching year from that perspective. So I think for me, that is probably my biggest takeaway of 2017. Obviously, the death of vol and the surprising Trump impact. But the corollary to that, the other side of that coin, is that options volume, at least so far, again, we know the numbers for December. So I don't think December was a super terrible month to wipe out the year. But so far, at least, it seems like this year actually was a bit of an up note in spite of it. Imagine I'll start with Uncle Mike. Imagine Mr. Uncle Mike, if we actually had some vol this year, what the numbers would have been. But still, that to me is probably the biggest surprise takeaway of 2017, the thing that really resonates with me. What is it for you, sir?
Well, that's definitely one that I'm very surprised with as well. But here's a reason as to why that might be the case is that maybe we just have more sophisticated option traders in existence now than we have in years past. Are there ways with which you can make money selling premium in this market? Yeah, you can be doing spreads of some sort. You can be doing diagonals, just everything that we talk about on this show. Conventional wisdom dictates that if the volatility is right at the sweet spot around like the 15 level, then there's a market for option buyers somewhere. There's a market for covered call sellers somewhere, and everybody wins. But perhaps we have a more sophisticated generation of option trader now than we have in years past. So that's one answer that I would have to that. And that's one thing that definitely resonated with me throughout this year. But the other thing is just the resounding meh in the silver market. I remember coming into 2017 excited about this silver collar that I was going to do. I really believed that I would be doing adjustments all the time on it, just with the way I had it set up. And I have two silver trades that I do. One of them is a real tight silver trade, which that one I figured didn't even mention on the show early in the year because I figured I'd do like maybe 3 or 4 adjustments to it. And I think I'm just looking at my spreadsheet for the year. I think I did 8 of them on that one, which really isn't that much. But in terms of the silver collar that I was promising all sorts of adjustments and this and that and the other and all sorts of fun stuff to talk about on it, I closed out a covered call. And that's the only adjustment that I've made on it. I did on May 12th. So that was the other thing that kind of surprised me, is the lack of significant movement in the precious metal market, whether to the upside or the downside. That's one thing that I did not see coming, I have to admit.
Somehow I had a feeling you would delve somewhere into the shiny stuff realm, Mr. Uncle Mike. Yeah, I might have to go into my category of bust of the year, at least maybe not performance-wise, but just certainly from a show content perspective, that collar, sir, has to go down as one of the greatest busts in show history, because you brought it in with such fanfare, and you were really selling me on this 2-year collar in SLV, sir, was going to be just the bee's knees, the cat's pajamas, as the old folks used to say, and just going to be just lighting it up with adjustments and moves. It's going to be fodder for myriad strategy blocks. And like you said, you've done, one trade on it in 27? You talked about it maybe twice. So, yeah.
Yeah, I thought it was going to be the second coming of Apple, but it's turned out to be one adjustment on May 12th. That's what we have to talk about. The
second coming of Apple. So you had high hopes for this one as well. So far, again, it's a 2-year collar. So we got 1 year left on this bad boy, unless you're planning to roll and extend the party indefinitely. I don't know. But content-wise, I'm hard-pressed to think of a bigger bust out there than that. Mr. Rock Lobster, sir, you've had some time to prepare to mull through the old noodle. What really is, for you, the key takeaway, surprising development, biggest trend, whatever you want to call it, from 2017?
Wow. Actually, from 2017, I think it's my trend. It's mostly just the low vol trend that at the end of the year became a higher vol trend for a lot of the big tech names. I'm not sure what that portends, but the options were super cheap in the summertime, and by the end of the year, they weren't so cheap anymore. So I thought that was one trend. As far as, the 9 VIX president is still just somehow all the volatility is in the tweets and none is in the market. So that as a trend or as a surprise, I think we'll still be scratching our heads on that one for years to come. We're like, wow, we missed that one. So those are in, where is the end for this bull market, which I honestly I don't know. Don't see where that is. So it's probably been fueled by earnings that a lot of that has come out. So we'll see. But I think just the earnings fueled rise in stocks, the low vol, and what used to be low long-term vol in kind of the Q stocks, it really is not that way anymore. So that's kind of where I am on what's been happening for, this year, or the kind of the surprising things for this year that at the beginning of the year, I would have never thought we would have got to the extent that we did. I mean, I'm not even looking at Bitcoin, but just those are areas that I'm surprised at by the end of the year where we are.
Yeah, I think you can kind of call 2017. I guess if you had to summarize it in one term like that, it's kind of the year of all kinds of smoke. We were choking on smoke seemingly every day. North Korea, the latest Trump Twitter storm, his beef with this country, what he said here, what he said there. Tons of smoke and zero fire. There was just no fire to be had with any of it. So yeah, we were just choking on if I had told you at the beginning of the year, A, we'd have Trump in there. B, the volatility would go down. Already a crazy surprise. C, we'd still have options volume resurging and actually gaining on the year. D, we'd have events like North Korea launching multiple missiles, or, you pick your apocalyptic event of choice, and we'd have not even a hint of fire. I don't know, Mr. Rock Lobster. I'm kind of at a loss for words to summarize this year. But I think smoke with no fire is not a bad way to go about it. What do you think?
I think that's the title of the show. 2017, the year of smoke with no fire. Get your mask. Now, what's 2018 going to be?
Yeah, 2018, the year of, who knows, the year of currently crypto. We can't wrap up 2017 without at least touching on it. We touched on it at the beginning of the show, obviously, but the big trend for, let's say, the latter, I don't even want to say the latter half, because no one was talking about Bitcoin that much 6 months ago. It really was Q4 where this heat just exploded on all things Bitcoin. I mean, look, if you were an early adopter on the crypto train, obviously not the miners who held onto it and did well, but in the product trading space, look at the guys at Nadex. They launched a product 2.5 years ago and they delisted it because nobody cared. And it was on the same exact product, same exact index that CME just launched futures on a few weeks ago. It's the Bitcoin reference rate. So it's same people. So it just shows you timing is everything in this space. And if you even launched a Bitcoin at the beginning of the year, I don't think anyone would have really cared until you got to, late into getting into Q3, late Q3, Q4. That's when the heat just turned up. And then, of course, we saw this just magical explosion of products on exchanges. Cboe, to their credit, they really announced it early, and they had been working on it for a while, talking to them. The CME one still seems to me like it kind of just sprung out of the ether. We were talking to them, weeks earlier and asking them questions about specifically that. Are you going to create this? And everyone we talked to over there gave a resounding no. And what didn't seem like a party line answer, it seemed like a very truthful answer. And yet, all of a sudden, this product materialized. And within spitting distance of the Cboe product. So a lot of interesting stuff going on there. Of course, the big question is the options. We'll get to that in a little bit. But, we can't, people will be mad if we don't at least touch on crypto. Any thoughts, Uncle Mike or Rock Lobster? Obviously, we're not a crypto show. Maybe one of those coming to the network soon, given all the heat. But just the thoughts on the I think surprising is underselling it. The insane explosion of interest in all things crypto here to wrap up 2017. Whoever wants to jump in, have at it.
Well, I'll jump in. I think that just with everything that's happened with it, there's a ton of interest in it. But I've gotten, whenever you hear about the average retail person talking about a market or something along those lines, then it's typically time to get out. And just with all the calls I got from clients and just people asking me about it at parties and things like that, it amazes me to where I have even everyone from firemen to college football players were asking me about Bitcoin. And when that's the case, that's typically a very bearish sign to me. So I think that with everything that's happened with it, it's been very volatile since the Cboe launched it. Obviously, it had a very good run, but now that people are able to trade it, now that people are able to short it in larger quantities, I can't wait till options come out on it because I think I might be buying some put spreads on it.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that one. I'm sure the people who are managing these short Bitcoin ETFs are looking forward to that day as well, because I'm with Talib on this one. I can't imagine shorting this product without having some options to do it with, because otherwise it's really just a madman's game. But we shall see. A lot going on. We'll also keep on going with some more of our 2017 look back. With some of the funky trades, interesting ones that stand out for us from the option block, or I should say the odd block here in 2017.
It's time to break down the most interesting, unusual, and downright questionable options activity that's been identified by theoptionsinsider.com. It's time for the odd block.
All right, everybody, welcome to this special 2017 look back episode version of the old odd block. We profiled obviously a ton of trades here in 2017, so picking the best, most interesting, weirdest, pick your poison is kind of a little bit like picking from your children there. There are so many to parse, and sometimes it's not always people want to have trades that make money, trades that lose money, trades that are just interesting. There's all kinds of different ways you could carve up this beast here. So it's kind of hard everyone has different criteria when they ask us about this kind of thing. But we got to start, Mr. Rock Lobster, with the trade that kind of just defined a lot of the odd block for 2017. It kind of really just exploded on our radar earlier this year when we kind of just did a cursory search looking for something else. And then all of a sudden this number came up for these redonkulous Tesla puts, these 2019 50 strike puts. And the number was so huge and it dwarfed every other open interest position in Tesla that they handed that to me. I looked at it, I said, this is not right. You go back and do this again. This is not correct. And so I went and ran it myself. And lo and behold, it was right. And it continued to grow and continues to grow. And this was kind of probably, if you had to have an odd block story of the year, this would certainly be it. I'll have to go back and check exactly what the OI was when we first started profiling these. I know it was obviously substantially less. Let's see, going back here just a few months ago, it was well shy of 30,000. It just broke 30,000 not that long ago. So I'm going to say it was probably in the low 20s, if not lower. So it's nearly doubled in OI, if not more, since we started talking about it. And it's just been a fascinating story to watch. In fact, 234 more of these hitting the tape today. This thing's still trading 57 cents at 66 cents. So the ongoing love, a lot of people have speculated throughout the year, listeners, guests on the show, as to exactly what they think is going on with these puts. And by the way, the corollary to this is, of course, the Jan 2020 50 puts picking up steam, doing another 552. Yes, I said that right. 552 of these $2.30 puts traded today. Jan 2020, 50 strikes. There's about 4,500 open. I'm guessing that number is going to jump up tomorrow to maybe 5,000. So that's another corollary to this story. This 50 strike love. Whoever has defined this, the actuary, the people who are writing these CDSs on Tesla and want to hedge with it, whoever is doing this has identified this 50 strike as the level they want, and they will just continue to buy it almost ad infinitum. I won't be surprised when we list the 2021 versions to see those lighting it up too. But that has to be one of my chief takeaways from the year, just the ongoing gift surprise that keeps on giving there in these puts. Mr. Rock Lobster, is that one of yours as well? They continue to grow. These 2020 puts are now starting to climb the ranks. It's crazy.
It is crazy. It is nuts. We have seen things that are totally improbable. Who would have guessed Bitcoin went from 1,000 to 19,000 bucks this year? So we've been looking at options long enough to know that just about anything can happen. So I remember trading GM before it went bankrupt. Actually, it was a part supplier, and I think it was I can't even remember the name of the part supplier. It's a pretty big one. Like it might have been Delco or something. But it was like 2005 or 2006 maybe. And at the time, the stock was trading 10, and they could not get enough of the two puts. Could not, really? This part supplier is going out of business? They're going bankrupt? And sure enough, a year and a half later, I remember the same thing happening with GM, and then we had, the financial crisis. But still, GM was getting ruined even before then. So everybody forgets about that. So Tesla right now, like I said, I'm a Musk fan. I think he does lots of great stuff. That he can keep doing this is amazing. But ultimately, they're going to have to start making money at some point because they got a lot of debt outstanding. And they've already done kind of the 2-3 card Monte with Solar City. So I love what he's doing. I hope it works. But it's one of those things at this point I'm just willing to sit back and watch while I go try to price a battery for my basement for a solar panel.
Well, obviously Tesla was a big one. Before I get into some of the ones that caught my eye, were there any trades that really resonated with you this year that stick out looking back on 2017, sir, that really kind of just stick in your mind? I mean, obviously we had a lot where we're just like, what the heck are these people doing? There were a lot of those. Anything really leap out front of mind to you, sir, as you look back on the year?
The biggest one overall was the guy or girl, whatever, gal, that trades the 250,000 VIX contracts. Like that combination with the put.
The three-way, so the 12, 15, 25, I believe it is.
Yeah, I guess they're just waiting for that. It's almost like that was a bet on Trump blowing up, I guess. That's how I keep seeing that. You use the put to finance some call spreads. And, who's got that kind of money to do it 250,000 times? I keep thinking it's like a Soros or a Steyer or some of those guys that are kind of hedge fund guys that are anti-Trump guys that like this is got to work eventually, so they keep putting it on and waiting for it to happen. It would be interesting to actually see who the initiator of that massive combination is. So we have yet to see it actually. It's hard to believe that hasn't sprung once this year, but it hasn't.
He's kind of waiting.
Really, really hard to believe.
He's kind of been waiting on that one for a while. He's rolled it, I think, thrice now. Last time, very recently, pushing VIX over a record of 3 million contracts. 2 million of that coming out of him alone? So just ridiculous.
That was a six-pack.
Ridiculous paper on this. I was kind of saving that one for volatility views tomorrow, but you're not going to be on that show probably. So I'll allow you to bring it up now. It will be allowed. But yeah, that is in terms of size. I don't know anything that's going to trump that this year. I don't know anything that could trump that this year. I mean, rolling every time, every strike, at least 250,000 contracts per strike when he started. So you're doing 750 to start, and then you're rolling that, so you're doing 1.5 million contracts, up to 2 million or so in the last time. So the size alone, I don't know anything else that even comes close. So that definitely is up there for my list here as well. I'm just looking through. There's so many that we profiled here that we've marked and talked about and checked back in. We had our friend there back on August 7th. There was a pretty size call buy in Extended Stay America Stay. We saw someone buying about 14,000 and change of the SEP 20s. Everybody wanted to know how those work out. That guy hit a home run. A lot of those prints went about a sequence. They were very aggressive buys. There was no OI, so it was all opening. And it looks like they were going to expire on September, obviously in September on expiration. And the stock was about 1880 or so when he put these on. And looking here at the chart, this went up in August 7th, and the stock kind of vacillated around and didn't really do what it needed him to do. It got close to 20 a few times, but didn't really do the dance through it that he needed to have these things actually start making some money. And so he ended up giving up the ghost, looks like, on the 13th. Actually, not a bad sale, all things considered. The stock was a little bit north of 20 when he dumped him, 2020. So he got his chance. He preserved a good chunk of his capital, dumped him for 30 cents. So he lost 20 cents. 15 or so thousand times, so maybe that's not a winner by any means, but it's better than losing 50 cents 15,000 times. That isn't maybe the most exciting in terms of wow potential, but it does go to show sometimes, it is good to have rules in place, cut your losses when they go against you, have a little bit of risk management in place so that when these things happen, you can survive and live to fight another day. Uncle Mike chiming in here. He's looking at a combo trade. Mr. Uncle Mike, was there an odd block that really resonated with you, sir?
Well, I remember we the one that I think you had sent it to me like in the middle of the day or something, to where someone on the Merc had bought a ton of out of the money gold.
Oh, the
calls.
gold trade. Yes, of course. That's also, I was saving that for TWIFO, but we can talk about that here as well. Why not? But yes, that was kind of crazy town as well. I'm going to dig up the strikes, but the strikes were just ludicrous. I think at the time there were well over 1,000 handles north of where gold was, and if not more, and just size that was ridiculous. And then there was a kicker beyond it. They were shorting two at like a ridiculous strike. I think the 3,000 strike, and I think it was like a 2,500 with a 3,000 kicker. I'll have to pull up the exact. But yeah, we had an interesting trade. Kind of another similar thing where first time I saw it, I thought it was wrong. We were in the middle of doing the show, and we do that show live, from the Quick Strike tool. So we see the numbers kind of as they're hitting them on the fly. And that trade hit, and we looked at it, and we both thought it was an error because it was so far out of the money for gold. And again, I can't find the strikes now. As soon as the show's over, I'm sure I will put the strikes in the show notes. But it was 1,000 handles out of the money for gold, and even better, I think it had a short 2-leg above it, so the short farther out of the money. The whole thing just made no sense, but it made your collar look very tame by comparison, Uncle Mike.
Oh, totally. It was I got it, Mark. I found what it is. It was they bought 7,500 of the DEAS 2018-2000 calls and sold 7,500. They bought 7,500 of the DEAS 18-2000 calls and sold 7,500 of the DEAS 2018 2,600 calls. So an out of the money vertical. And then what they did is they added they decided to buy 15,000 of the Dees 3000 calls for the kickers. So it still has a year to go, but we'll need a lot of gold to get moving on that one.
Yeah, I knew there was a 2X on the 3000 strike lurking somewhere. That one really, it just, when you first saw it, it kind of defied description. There's gold bugs, and then there's that, which just takes it to a whole other level out there, several thousand handles away from where we're trading. He's got a year or so for it to come to fruition, but you can imagine, I don't know, I can't even, I'd be hard-pressed to think of a scenario where we can get to, gold can get to that level that quickly that isn't in the apocalyptic realm, you know? So it's one of those trades where if it pays off in the time frame you need, you might have other things to worry about. Yeah, it's one of those weird trades. Like the guys used to sell way out of the money puts in the S&P, and they'd say, those come due, the world's ending anyway, so it won't really matter. Maybe that gold trade has a little bit of that resonance to it as well. We got more here. Really got a JetBlue risk reversal. It was a doubling down on a bullish risk reversal there. In JetBlue, we weren't sure at the time if it was opening. It was actually Dees, so it's very relevant. It went out recently. It was the Dees 24-28 vertical with the Dees 19 puts. They blasted it out 5,000 times the day before, so 10,000 times total. They were doubling down on the trade. We weren't sure at the time, and it looked like it didn't really work out too well for them, doubling down, doing 10,000 contracts total, so 30,000 across all the strikes. The stock dropped right down. They needed this thing. Let's see, it was the Dees 19 puts and the 24-28 vertical. So obviously they needed this thing to spike north pretty quickly. It didn't. As it turned out, it dropped to 18 almost immediately after this trade went up. Again, this was back in July 27th. And then took most of the year to get kind of slowly crawl its way back to the 21-22 level. So kind of went out, no good for this trade. Luckily for them, their outlay wasn't enormous. It was 17 cents at 27 cents. So they didn't lose a ton, but they needed a nice little kick for that, at least those 24s to become relevant. And none of that worked out. We also had, what was this weird ratio here in Citi back on March 30th, all the way back on March 30th. We had someone sitting on some nice house money, so the stock had spiked. They ended up taking the profits on the 43s, selling those out, and then buying 2X, nice house money upside roll, 2X of the 45s. They did those for 46 cents, 25,000 times and change. So they really wanted to put some of their money back to work. They had some love for good old Citi. Turns out this guy pretty much wasted a good chunk of his profits. He gave up the ghost about not that long later. About a couple weeks later, he dumped pretty much all 25,000 of these things for 30 cents. So he didn't lose a ton. But he decided, he took a swing at the bat, didn't really work out, and his timing wasn't that good because stock turned around again a few weeks later, and actually it would have expired by then, so maybe if he had rolled, it would have worked out, but his stock hit 47 like a week or two later, so he just needed a couple more weeks. So all you guys out there who are saying, I missed it by a day or a week or whatever, it happens for the size guys too. It's not just you here. We'll profile this one later. This is the size trade here. It's going up. It's going out next month, so we can talk about that in a little bit. But now let's keep on rolling. Let's do a really quick, Uncle Mike, your thoughts on maybe just your favorite moments on the strategy block here for 2017.
It's time to dispense options wit, wisdom, and education. It's time for the Strategy Block.
Uncle Mike, I didn't prep you for this, so I'm kind of throwing you a curveball, but any fun thoughts, any topics that really resonate with you as you look back on the legion of, dare I say, somewhere on 52 strategy blocks that you did this year?
Quite a few, for sure. The ones that really resonated with me, I think, have to do with the fact that we had a very low VIX this year. And I've been trading options for roughly 15 years in one form or another. And I would say that before, I probably bought more out-of-the-money calls this year than I have in the last 15 years. The reason is because I've never really had quite the opportunity like this year to be an out-of-the-money call buyer. Now, I talked about several times on the show, primarily over the last month or so in late November, early December, was when I was just basically buying an out-of-the-money call on SPY and looking to finance it by, I'll borrow another term from Andrew, doing stuff, borrow a lot of his terms lately. He's a smart guy. But anyway, that's one where I would say it was definitely the most memorable to me because I'm really not an out-of-the-money call buyer by any means. And the fact that I bought so many out-of-the-money calls this year, it made for a good year being bullish and buying out-of-the-money calls. But probably not something that I see happening in the future. But who knows? We might have a 7 VIX next year. You never know. So that was probably to keep it quick because I know we're kind of short on time right now. The ones that really resonated the most with me were my out-of-the-money call buying.
All right, and as we roll on into the final segment of our final show for the year, let's get into our Around the Block, maybe peer into the future a little bit.
It's time to tell you what we'll be watching on our trading screens until the next episode. It's time for Around the Block.
Really quickly, before we get into that stuff, I want to pay off a couple of questions we asked you guys last week. We asked you guys, when do you think we're going to see Bitcoin options? Kind of turn the tables on you guys because they're always asking us that. 38% optimistic, saying Q1. So given how fast we saw the futures make it, I guess I can't disagree with you, even though I think Q2 was more reasonable, and 33% of you saying Q2. The rest kind of scattered throughout the rest of the year. And we also asked you guys, hey, are you guys interested in that ETF? The Bitcoin ETF that ICE announced last week. 37% said yes, 30% saying no, 30% saying this is getting crazy, and 3% saying I prefer the futures. So there you go for that one. But here we are wrapping up our 2017 Look Back Palooza. Maybe time for us to look ahead a little bit into 2018, and this year was such an outlier. All predictions were wrong. That it does make you feel weird attempting to do it. But I think maybe the question on everyone's mind, Mr. Rock Lobster, that we're all kind of wrestling with, and we'll have to do it on Volatility Views again tomorrow soon, is this trend going to continue? Not the crypto or anything else like that, but just this continued dearth of volatility, this continued run in the bull market, this continued just, outlier status that we see out here in the broad market? Or is our friend there who's doing the three-way in VIX and a legion of others who've been starting to spec on the VIX upside train, are they going to maybe see maybe going to see finally a little reward for their efforts and their money? And I'm still wrestling with this myself. I don't know if I have I think obviously for the foreseeable beginning of 2018, I think we're probably going to be in status quo. But once end of Q1, beginning of Q2 starts kicking in, all bets are off. I don't know. What are you feeling, Mr. Rock Lobster? And maybe the corollary to that is, if all these things we saw in 2017 are not enough to budge the needle, what do you think it takes outside of course, the bull market coming to a shocking and cataclysmic end?
Well, I think what we have been able to kick down the road is still like G7 debt, Chinese debt, all that kind of stuff where, yes, there's a lot of equity growth. Americans, I don't know, more indebted, less indebted, all that kind of stuff. China seems to be still borrowing tons of money. Those are kind of the things that sort of sneak up on us as far as just the market selling off because stocks are at a higher price. They could, but I keep thinking that we still haven't paid this debt piper from 2008 yet. It'll probably be another year unless, Europe and the U.S. and Chinese can all kind of turn their boats around and stop borrowing so much money and still have economic growth. So it's one of those things where you don't, it looks like we could still keep chugging along. That's the thing. But I keep thinking that will be where the thing that next lurks. But you could go broke trying to wait for it, I think, as well. So, but I think another year, not as good as this year, but certainly, unless something changes, we could see more of the same and more up this year. I keep looking at that long-term vol, and all of a sudden people are starting to buy calls again, kind of that sort of strange latent bullish activity. When people start buying calls, usually there's a reason. So I can have to say, it could happen again. We could have something similar all over again, no problem.
Yeah, it does seem like it takes a lot to really budge the needle these days. Uncle Mike, I know it's hard for you to pull yourself back from your perma-bull status to think of even this bull market getting off the rails there, but maybe outside of that, what do you think it really would take for us to return to some semblance of normalcy, at least from a volatility perspective?
It's going to be tough. I mean, the fact that we have threats of nuclear war and that doesn't move the market or doesn't move the VIX, then I'm having a hard time seeing what will at this point. So the only thing that I would say at this point in terms of what news could do something to it, I don't know what could, quite frankly. I remember looking at the markets when it looked like some bad stuff was going to happen to Trump with someone that's going to testify against him a couple of weeks ago, and we had a little bit of a market move and a little bit of a VIX pop, but that lasted all of about an hour, I think. So in terms of what's going to make the VIX pop, I'm just going to say the obvious right here: more buyers than sellers of volatility. That's the only thing that can do it, because I don't know what news is going to make it happen, and there's going to have to be some reason that we don't know about to create the vol buyers to come out.
All right. Gonna have to leave it there, listeners. What a fun year it has been. What better way to go out than maybe on this comment here from the chat from Option God, I like that name, saying thanks for so many great shows this year. Looking forward to 2018. Right back at you, sir, and right back at you to all of you out there for listening. We want to thank you guys. We really couldn't do this without you guys listening. So thanks for listening. Thanks for writing in. Thanks for live streaming. Thanks for tweeting and Facebooking and stock tweeting and all the other things you guys do to the show. And hey, if you got a friend who might like it, go ahead and recommend it to them. That wouldn't hurt us either. It's always nice to have more fans, more listeners, more friends. The show's been going for many years, but guess what? We like it. We have fun doing it. I think we're going to keep it going for a long time to come. So we're looking forward to 2018 with all of you guys. But before we go, let's go back around the horn one last time. This is going to be a broader, bigger little plug for you guys than usual. I want you guys to think and really say, what do you guys got in the hopper for 2018 that's going to really interest people? Maybe we'll start with you, Uncle Mike. If I'm looking at Uncle Mike and I'm saying, what's he got in store for me in the year 2018? What do you got, sir?
Come to my office. We are going to be having, we're going to start out doing monthly meetings, but we might increase it more as interest increases. I already have 30 people in my St. Charles Investing Club, to where we all get together and we talk about option strategies. Next meeting is January 11th, so come on by the office. If you want more information on it, just type in St. Charles Investing Club on meetup.com, and you can find the club. And if you're in the area, if you're in the Chicago area, if you want to venture out to lovely, sunny, scenic St. Charles, Illinois, come out to the office. We'll talk options. It's a ton of fun.
Look at you. If that club keeps growing, we might have to go out there and do a live option block for them. That might be kind of fun, huh?
For sure.
If you say it's at Skippy's, Gyros, and Lemonade, I'm definitely in. I'm just throwing that. I got to get them to sponsor the show. I've given them too many free plugs. It's time for them to cut us a check here on the old option block. Cut us in on some of that Lemonade money. All right, and last but not least, Mr. Rock Lobster. If I'm saying to myself, what can I look forward to from the boys at the pit / Carmen Line / Misk in 2018? What can I look forward to, sir?
Look for my new Vol newsletter, probably the best, most comprehensive, actionable newsletter around. That will be coming, if not next week, the following week. And our new fund from Carmen Line, which is probably the coolest thing I've seen. So anyway, those are probably our two big projects. That'll be enough to keep us busy for a while, with all the other stuff we do.
There you go, listeners. Check them out. You know where to find them, optionpit.com. And if you are indeed a qualified investor, maybe you want to hit them up about all things Carmen Line, as well as the new fund, which name is escaping me right now, but you can check it out wherever you find the Carmen Line info as well. And on behalf of Uncle Mike and the Meatball, who couldn't be here, and the Rock Lobster, and indeed myself, and of course for all of our guests throughout the year, I really want to thank you guys again. We couldn't do it without you guys. You make the network what it is. We love all of you, each and every one, except all of you who send the hate mail for the Rock Lobster. We really love you guys. And we'll see more of you right back here in 2018 for more of the Option Block.
The preceding program was a production of the Options Insider Radio Network. For more quality options programs, visit www.theoptionsinsider.com or search for Options Insider Radio Network in your podcast provider of choice. Listeners can also access all of our programming through our mobile app, available in iTunes and on Google Play. Don't forget to follow along with your favorite programs and submit your own questions for the hosts at twitter.com/options, facebook.com/theoptionsinsider, or via questions at theoptionsinsider.com.